Heading into FPL Game Week 9, I've got 5 free transfers and some big plans lined up, so let's go and dive into today's video. Now, as always, before we dive into today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We managed to hit 20k over the weekend. Let's see if we could get to that 25k mark by the end of the season. It is only possible with your guys' amazing support. So of course, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on this channel, like I said, just make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing. As you can see, this is how we have got on so far. Of course, there is one game still to go. I'm filming this before the West Ham Brentford game. The biggest threat in that game is, of course, going to be Jared Bowen. If he does anything, we're probably going to move down a little bit, but I imagine we're still probably going to be in a very similar position, around that 1.5 to 1.7 mil rank position. That's probably where roughly we are going to be at. So it's been a very, very good week. As you can see, we did decide to play the bench boost. On my bench, of course, was Dubravka with the beautiful 9-pointer, Tarkowski with the 3-pointer, and Dye with a 4-pointer, and unfortunately an Anderson 1-pointer as well. I do think in that game, if he'd have managed to stay on, he probably would have came away with a 4-pointer. So 3 additional points could have been up for grabs. But overall, I'm just glad that we've got the bench boost out of the way. We've been and ahhing when to play it for the past few weeks. I'm so glad I didn't hold out till game week 9, because we would have been left in this position where Anderson isn't available, and I would have been making transfers to, of course, just facilitate a bench boost. And that's something that I don't really want to do with this chip. We've got it out of the way. We've managed to score 17 off the back of it, which in the grand scheme of things is a pretty good return. Dubravka alone kind of pretty much just makes up most of the points that we are, of course, going to get from it. So yeah, 17, I'm pretty happy with that. There was also, you know, some good performances. Haaland captain, Bruno Fernandes, who I'm so glad that we've held and are planning to hold on to for the next few weeks as well coming up. I'm glad I didn't make that move to Saka this week. I'm glad I've got him for the remaining fixtures coming up, because his baseline BPS is looking absolutely fantastic. Of course, as well, it looks like he's still going to be on penalties. There was a quote asked to Almarin about Bruno. He said, you know, he's taken 70 penalties within his career. Of course, I'm frustrated that he's missed the last 2, but he'll definitely be confident enough to take the next one. So that to me insinuates that he's probably still going to be on the penalties. So that feels pretty good kind of around that. A little bit disappointed about Caicedo's benching. Would have been nice, but again, we've probably missed out on maybe like 1 or 2 extra additional points this week. But overall, in terms of the grand scheme of things, I think we're in a great place heading into game week 9. Like I said, we've got 5 free transfers. I made 2 moves overnight last night, just to, of course, catch some rises and some falls as well, because we would have been 0.3 million worse off if I had have left it till this morning. So we've made the moves early. Like I said, though, we do have the 5, so if it doesn't quite work out, you know, there's an injury midweek or someone gets injured, we've still got an additional 3 to kind of fix things anyway, so I'm not worried too much. Let's go take a look then at the 2 players that I've already bought in, and of course some other transfers I might go for. Like I said, we've still got 3 additional ones on top of the 2 we've already used, so let's go and take a look. So the first player that I did go and bring in last night was Bukayo Saka. We managed to get him for 9.9. Of course, he did go up last night to 10 million. The reason that I've gone for Saka and switched away from Gyökeres is, yeah, for me, I just felt that Gyökeres just wasn't the guy. Like, he wasn't, you know, he had opportunities in the game against Fulham. Like, let's not dispute that. There was definitely some opportunities in there. But the fact that Saka managed to get 2 bonus points, despite doing absolutely nothing really in the game, like in terms of attacking kind of threat from an FPL perspective, the fact that he managed to do that just for me shows how good an asset this guy is. Like, you just can't fathom it. He also managed to pick up defensive contributions, which is something I would not expect every single week from Bukayo Saka. But watching the games, he just looks like if Arsenal are going to do anything, he's going to have some sort of involvement in it. That is how I feel about Bukayo Saka now. I can't say the same for, of course, Gyökeres. And one of the big things that I've tried to focus this season on is players that have multiple avenues to points. I keep banging on about it in videos, but it is something that I'm really looking to target this season, and I think Saka does just tick that box. He's taking corners. Some of the delicious deliveries, by the way, against Fulham really caught my eye. He's maybe got the penalty share. He's maybe got some free kick share. Has hit DEFCON now. We've seen it. Like, maybe that could be a trend going forward. I wouldn't bank on it. But he is one of those players that just has open play threat as well. You can see the underlying numbers not too bad with the limited minutes that he's seen already this season. So, again, it just feels like a player who's got multiple avenues to points. and could be maybe a captaincy for that game week 10 fixture as well with Burnley there. I don't even think it's a bad fixture this week against Palace. Their XG conceded's kind of middle-ish table, and Bournemouth probably put up a blueprint on how to actually beat Crystal Palace, and there was quite a lot of set pieces that Bournemouth kind of exploited Palace on. So I'm watching that and I'm going, yeah, Saka and Gabriel, they're definitely going to be a team I want to target. Of course, as well, looking at the expected goals created so far this season from set plays, Arsenal are sat second in that metric, and they've already managed to score 7 goals from set pieces. Set piece numbers are massively up as well. 28% of the goals scored so far this season have come from set plays, and Arsenal are a big part of that. If you flash back to last season, they managed to score 17 from set pieces. The season before that, it was 22. So this team knows how to score goals from set pieces, and one of the men that is going to be, whipping them in or maybe on the penalties is going to be Bukayo Saka. So that's why I made the move last night. I got rid of Gyökeres, an asset that wasn't performing well, and just gone for the Saka move. I just think it makes complete sense for me and my size. And of course, to facilitate that move, we did bring in Krupig Jr., from Bournemouth. Now, you might be thinking 4.5, he's had one good game. I wouldn't expect him to, probably play further down the line. That doesn't bother me. Like, this guy will see some minutes. Now, Evanilson hasn't been ruled out, but Iriola didn't seem confident around what he was saying for game week 9 for him. So, looks like he might potentially miss the game with a calf injury. So, we could get Krupig starting one more game. But you feel if he scores within that game, what's them to stop him going, you know what, maybe you give him the City game, maybe you give him the Villa game, and maybe if Evanilson's injury is more longer term as well, we could be getting a starting striker who is finding goals within the Premier League for 4.5 million. Now, most weeks he is going to be sat second or third sub on my bench most weeks. Even this week I'm bringing him in. He's currently sat on the bench. He's not made his way into the starting 11. That is, just something that I don't think really needs to happen straight away, to be honest. So, yeah, he's pretty much just, like I said, a facilitator to keep both Saka and Bruno Fernandes. That is the main reason that he has come into the side. I'm not expecting the world from him. There might be the odd game where, of course, he plays for us in the side, but most of the time, like I said, he is just going to be sat on the bench, and this was one of the main reasons I wanted to get the bench boost out of the way. Give myself just to kind of dead-end that striker spot, or at least dead-end one position that can just sit third sub. They might see some minutes if we really desperately need them. However, overall, I'm not too worried about it. So yeah, they're the two moves that we've made so far. Like I said, we did, kind of work out like a 0.3 difference. So it was a big move, and we've got the extra transfers. If for whatever reason Krupig isn't fit, or Saka, of course, doesn't make, the UCL squad or whatever, we've got transfers in the bank to, of course, rectify those decisions if needs be. But so far, I'm really happy with the 2 transfers that I have made. Now looking to some other players that I might potentially bring in ahead of game week 9, or potentially in the near future if, of course, Enzo Fernandez, for example, isn't fit and available for this week, or, we potentially just want to bank some more transfers and take 4 into next week, then, of course, we'll do that because the fixtures are still there, which would be great. But, of course, we might bring him in this week if he plays minutes against Ajax. That is all I'm waiting for. If he plays minutes against Ajax, then yes, I definitely think I want a bit of that Enzo Fernandez pie. The XG is looking really good. Of course, while Cole Palmer isn't fit and available, is going to be the penalty taker. And I do just look at the fixtures coming up for Chelsea, and I just think there's some absolutely cracking attackable fixtures in here. Wolves and Burnley in particular have been very, very poor for XG conceded. We're seeing Sunderland start to give away more and more opportunities as the game weeks do progress as well. You think Chelsea at home, probably going to be a pretty strong performance. Tottenham as well, like they've been pretty hit and miss, especially, around European football and Carabao Cup football as well. Could be maybe an area where we do look to exploit. Again, Enzo has that multiple avenues to points that, of course, I am looking to target. He's got the corners. He takes some free kicks. Of course, as well, has the penalty share while Palmer is out of the side. So he's got, again, that multiple avenues to points. He has hit defensive contributions at some point this season. I would not be expecting that from him every single week. But I do just think with the fixtures coming up, him in the 10, him, of course, maybe looking likely to be on the penalties as well for 6.7 million does feel like a really good no-brainer. But, of course, it is going to be all kind of, way made upon what sort of minutes he does see against Ajax, and of course any sort of press conference comments we do get from Maresca heading into that Sunderland at home fixture. To of course facilitate that move, we do need to obviously shift some more funds around, and it would be bringing in Michael Keane for Tarkowski. Tarkowski at 5.5 doesn't really feel kind of justifiable when now we've got confirmation that Branthwaite is going to be out for an extended period of time. He's having some surgery done, so that means he's going to be out, I think, up until the new year. They've been reporting on Twitter, and I don't think they're just going to chuck Branthwaite straight back in as well if it has been obviously, you know, surgery involved in a lengthy injury. So I do think obviously they'll just stick with Keane for quite a long period of time. Again, his defensive contribution numbers have been pretty decent. 9.5 kind of, you know, DEFCON per 90. So he's getting close to hitting 10 per game, which is very much obviously the threshold and where we want our defenders to be. Tarkowski is at 11.5 so far this season and has hit the defensive threshold more times than Michael Keane. But for me, it's only like a handful more times. So is that going to be worth that extra 1 million? When I could rather, you know, upgrade Caicedo to Enzo. I just personally, for me, feel like that extra 1 million saved, or 1 million spent, should I say, isn't going to justify spending that on Tarkowski when Keane is right there doing very similar numbers, of course playing for the same defence anyway. So for me, it doesn't really feel like the most ideal move. And Keane as well is a real threat from set piece. A lot of the times, Tarkowski is the blocker and Keane usually is the guy that is on the end of a lot of these corners. We saw that with the only goal that he did manage to score as well already so far this season. So for 4.5, I could be getting the guy who is the target for set pieces. Similar-ish numbers to Tarkowski. I'd probably say like 1 in 3 for Keane, 1 in 2 probably more likely for, you know, Tarkowski. So is it really worth spending that extra million on? Not for me personally, and this is why, of course, I am looking at Michael Keane. Another option that I have considered as well is going to be Chris Richards from Crystal Palace as well. Not the most ideal week to, of course, bring him in, but we could just chuck Rodon into the side with West Ham at home. And Leeds' expected goals conceded numbers so far this season have been pretty steady, so it could be something that maybe we, of course, do look at. But those are my transfers. Let's go and take a look at how the team is lining up for Game Week 9, and, of course, run through any future plans I might potentially have with my side. Okay, so here is my team in Fantasy Football Hub. Of course, if you want to go and take a look at your own team in Fantasy Football Hub, I would highly recommend doing so. There is going to be a link in the description. They're still running their 50% off sale. So honestly, go and take full advantage of that while you can. It's a really good, useful tool to, of course, plan ahead your next few game weeks. So here you can see, obviously, we've brought in the 2 players that we've got this week. We've got Saka and we've brought in Krupik. He is going to just be sat on the bench there, as you can see. Saka goes straight into that starting lineup, and we do play Caicedo. Now, of course, if we were to obviously make the moves that we have suggested in today's video, this is very much how the team could be looking. We could, of course, go and get Enzo in here. Very nice, but as you can see, we do need to free up some funds. So the one way we would do that is, of course, take Tarkowski out, and we would bring in Michael Keane, just like that. As you can see, 1 point difference, 0.1 difference for them. So obviously optimize the team. 95% AI rating. It's dropped a little bit. It was 97 with Caicedo, but I guess that's because Enzo is flagged. So that's how the team would, of course, look for this week. Very strong. Very happy with that as an overall team. Heading into game week 10 then, this would be very much based on João Pedro's performance. If he looks good, then I think obviously we give him continued minutes. If he looks bad, then I definitely think, you know, we've got to start maybe having a think about a certain man named John Philippe Mateta. As you can see, we made that move. His fixtures do just look absolutely ridiculous over the next few weeks. Brentford, Brighton, Wolves is that next 3 there. João Pedro's would be Tottenham, Wolves and Burnley. So again, pretty decent games for both players. But like I said, if João Pedro is just not at the mark, I do think this is going to become a very, very template front 2, as you can see here, with Haaland and Mateta. Now, if we head back to game week 9, we could also maybe do this move in game week 10 potentially, or if Enzo still isn't fit and available, we could also go and get Sarr, who has looked really, really good over the past few weeks. If we keep moving forward, the plan would obviously be to start building up some transfers and get some transfers in the bank for Game Week 12 and Game Week 13. As you can see, the team just pretty much picks itself most weeks. Really, really easy just to keep obviously tripping through. Game Week 12, again, the team, it just does pick itself. And hopefully Anderson's injury isn't going to be a long-term one, because Fulham do have some good fixtures coming up where I would like to, of course, play him. And he has been very good with those defensive contributions. But I'm really happy with the state of my team. I think the transfers that I've made already, I'm really happy with. It's nice to actually make some moves. Obviously, building up to 5 is never easy. But yeah, I think we're in a really, really good position here where, of course, we can manage the next few weeks, see what position we, of course, want to be in, see which players are looking good, and, of course, start to probably invest into some Crystal Palace players and Mateta as well with some great fixtures. Definitely going to be a player, I think, that will be entering our side in the upcoming weeks. Let me know what you think of my transfer plans for the upcoming game weeks. Of course, if you've got any questions about your own team, get them in, as we'll try to answer as many as we possibly can. But thank you for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in Game Week 9.